flowing with milk and honey, with grapes bigger than your head. This was going to be an amazing place to go to. The report was not about the land, it was about their hearts. If they were ready to receive and conquer and do all the things that God was calling them to do. So many people in the modern church today, and even in our church, we wonder, hey, when are we going to grow some more? When are we going to have new growth? When are we going to see people's lives change? What's going on with the world around us? And I'm wondering if God, the harvest is plentiful. And the laborers, it says, are few. It's not about what's going on out there. It's about what's going on in our hearts. Are we ready to share the love of God? If we had 50 people walk into this door new, are we ready to love them and disciple them and care for them the way the gospel would have us to do? This is not about out there. This is about our hearts, just as it was with the spies. That was pretty good, right? All right. When I talk to my parents' generation about what are some significant moments in their life or in history that they always remember, and my parents would always tell me that they knew exactly where they were and what they were doing when they found out that JFK was assassinated. That was a pivotal, negative moment in their existence, and they can still remember it, and it was fresh as it was yesterday. For my generation, it's 9/11. Like it was yesterday, I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing. I remember the first time that I saw those images, and I remember it like it was yesterday. Now, the difference between other generations and my generation and everybody below us is we have the horrible gift of video. And unlike my parents, who they've seen, they have seen footage of JFK, but not like we've seen 9/11. I've probably seen hundreds of footage of the attacks at 9/11 and all the carnage and everything. And the more I've seen that, the more it is reinforced. Maybe the world really isn't a more negative place, but maybe I'm just more reminded of it because of video. And because of all these things that keep bouncing in my head over and over again. Shaunti Feldhahn in the book about the kindness challenge talks about how we reinforce negativity even in our own lives. She says the following. She says, whether we thrive in our lives and in our relationships is far more related to how we treat other people than how we ourselves are treated. And so instead of looking around and saying, man, I just wish the world was a better place, it's a horrible place, people are bullies, people are mean, everything is going to hell around me, maybe I should begin to act kindly. And maybe through acts of kindness towards people that I know and love, maybe God will open up opportunities for me to see the world around me from a different perspective. This means that instead of looking at the world and wondering when others are going to be kind, the world will change when I decide to treat others with the kindness of God. Now that's one of the messages of Colossians chapter 3. Paul identifies his audience. These are Christians who have set their minds on things above, who have their lives hidden in Christ. And even though we have died to our old selves, Paul indicates that there are old ways of thinking and living still residing in our hearts. In verse 5, he instructs us in this way. He says, put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you. Sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry. Note on that list that almost every single one of them are not really overt actions, but they're motivations of the heart. Almost every single one of them, it doesn't begin with doing bad things, it's having these thoughts. He says as a part of our old nature, immorality, impurity, passions, evil desires, all these bad motivations and thoughts in our hearts. These desires negatively impact our lives and our relationships and how we see the world. And the antidote, according to Paul, is not just thinking nice thoughts. And yes, I know there are other places like Philippians 4:8 that says, if you will, think on these things, whatever is excellent, pure, all those things. But then right after that, it says, put those things into practice. We forget that. So this is not The church is not about, just think positively. This is not a positive, this is not a motivational speech for you to think more positively. You can get that anywhere else. This is about the power of the gospel to change how I see the world through how I treat those around me, especially those who I'm supposed to love. These kind and righteous actions will place the actions of my old self. Verses 8 through 11 in Colossians 3 say the following. But now you must put them all away. Anger, wrath, malice, slander, obscene talk from your mouth. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices, and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in the knowledge after the image of its Creator. Here there is not Greek and Jew, circumcised, uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, free, but Christ is all and in all. That last part where he talks about all these different races and religions and things, he's basically saying, listen, guess what? There's no excuse. You can't say, I'm the way I am because of my culture, because of my upbringing, because of my religion. All those things are wiped away with the new nature that we receive in Christ. This is where Paul is going. And next week, we're going to be talking about how to put those into practice, especially from the memory verse we have in verse 12 and 13, where he says, put on then, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, etc. But the point today, and we had it last week as one of our subpoints, the entire point today, if you forget everything else I say, remember this one line: we are more negative than we think. All right? I'm just say that with me today. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. We are more negative than we think. It's true. It's absolutely true. And like a doctor, if you're going to get the right medicine, you've got to get the right diagnosis. We've got to diagnose the different forms of negativity we have in order to treat them with all these good practices and good thinking of Christ. Remember, that was our first blind spot from last week. And using Feldhahn's book, The Kindness Challenge, she indicates 7 common forms of negativity that we often have. And guess what? I found them all in Numbers chapter 13 and 14. And so what I want to do is I want to walk with you through the people of God, through what was going on with them at the time, to show you in a biblical form what was going on. So if you've got your Bibles on your iPads, whatever, turn to Numbers chapter 13. It's in the Old Testament as an example of obvious and subtle ways that we express negativity. Now, let me give you a little backstory before we begin, so you'll know what was going on. The people of Israel have been liberated from slavery in Egypt. Listen up. They've been fed and led in the desert through miraculous means. They stand at the door of Canaan. Now, this land is special not because of its natural resources, because it's the fulfillment of God's promise. We're going to see the natural resources come up. I mean, it's a great place that they're going to love to live in, but more than that, it's a representation of God's promise. That's why it's called the Promised Land. And if you remember in the story, Moses selects how many spies? Help me out this morning, Bible study people. 12 spies. He selects 12 spies from the 12 tribes to spy out the land and report back on what they find. The comments from the 10 of the spies and the response of the others listening demonstrate the power of negativity in our lives. Now, let me tell you one more little nugget. I'm not going to charge you extra for this morning, but let me tell you that when they were sent to investigate the land, it was never about the land. I think Moses knew exactly what they were going to get when they got there. I think there was no question that it was going to be a land flowing with milk and honey, with grapes bigger than your head. This was going to be an amazing place to go to. The report was not about the land, it was about their hearts. If they were ready to receive and conquer and do all the things that God was calling them to do. So many people in the modern church today, and even in our church, we wonder, hey, when are we going to grow some more? When are we going to have new growth? When are we going to see people's lives changed? What's going on with the world around us? And I'm wondering if God, the harvest is plentiful. And the laborers, it says, are few. It's not about what's going on out there. It's about what's going on in our hearts. Are we ready to share the love of God? If we had 50 people walk into this door new, are we ready to love them and disciple them and care for them the way the gospel would have us to do? This is not about out there. This is about our hearts, just as it was with the spies. That was pretty good, right? All right, there's a little extra for you today. I didn't plan that. I just kind of, okay. So here we go. I want to share with you 7 common forms of negativity. The first one is, this is just going to be too hard. We talked about that last week. The first true form of negativity is this will be too hard. All these, by the way, are on our notes on our app. You can follow through that. You can fill in the blanks as you go if that helps you continue. All of this is on there for you to enjoy. This will be too hard. We discussed this last week once again about listening to the voice of rationalization. When we think doing the right thing will be too hard, so that negative voice comes in and says, hey, don't even do it. It's too hard. It's too hard for me to be nice. It's too hard for me to love that person that annoys me more than anything else. That's just too hard. I can't do it. And oftentimes, let me ask you something. When something difficult comes in your life, is it easier to look at all the God possibilities, or is it easier to come up with a huge list of why you shouldn't do it? The list, right? The list is always easier than doing what God is calling you to do. Look at verse 27 and 29 of Numbers 13. And they told him, these are the spies, we came to the land which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. I wish they stopped there. It would have been so special if it just stopped there and they said, bam, we're good. Let's go. It's good, flowing with milk and honey. Never seen that before, don't understand. I've never been to a land that has milk actually flowing out of it. I don't know what's going on here, but it's great. Let's do it. Right? I wish they stopped there. However, verse 28, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of Negev. Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites dwell in the hill country. And the Canaanites dwell by the sea and among the Jordan. You ought to circle those words, however, and besides, in that story. Every excuse starts with a besides, or, every excuse starts with a big but, right? But this, yeah, that was a pun. You can laugh at that. Every excuse starts with a big but. And besides, however, notice how much longer the excuses are than the good things that they notice in the land. It's really short. They basically just say, hey, it's what you said, milk, honey, fruit. We're not even going to describe it anymore. Now let's describe how fortified this place is and every people group that we're seeing and how fortified this place is. Do you see that? In their minds, the negative possibilities outweigh any promise that God has made. We're more negative than we think. We're more negative than we think. Number 2. The second negativity that we relate to in this passage is exasperation or irritation. Do you find yourself constantly irritated with someone in your family, your circle of friends, or on the job or at school? Is there somebody that God has placed in your life that simply drives you crazy? And many of us have the spiritual gift of rolling our eyes, and we communicate so... Oh my gosh. If I see you... Really? 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 Does that express anything? This is a sermon for somebody else. This is not for you and I today. No one has the gift of eye rolling in this congregation today, right? No one's got that. Exasperation or irritation. Numbers 13, 30 through 32. Look at this. It says, but Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, this is the good report, let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are able to overcome it. Verse 31, then the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people of Israel. They are stronger than we are. So they brought to the people of Israel a bad report of the land that they had spied out. You're missing it if you don't read in Spanish and English. That bad report there, it says that they begin to make up false stories or rumors. It's not just that they that they wanted to present their own, but they start putting salsa in there. They're starting to put a little extra a little extra something in there to really convince everybody else how bad of an idea this really is. Can you sense the irritation of the 10 spies as they try and prove their point? They were done listening to the good report of Caleb and Joshua. Now they're just building it up. And what's the message? When we are exasperated with people or irritated with people, what we are really saying about them is, you're an idiot. I mean, that's really what it is. You are an idiot. You have no reason for being here, for sitting here. This is idiotic. You are an idiotic person. That's really the message. Isn't that what the spies are saying to the two guys? Those guys, don't listen to them. They're idiots. Listen to what I have to say. All right? Exasperation often goes public with your private criticism of someone. Exasperation robs you of being able to enjoy your relationship with that other person. You cannot see them in the image of God. They are absolutely something else. You guys, we're more negative than we think. We're more negative than we think. Now, negativity 3 and 4 I've combined for us today because they're very, very similarly related. It's catastrophizing and suspicion. Those are two really big words. Catastrophizing and suspicion. In other words, you are full of drama. Drama. Everything about you is dramatic. It's drama. You invent stuff in your head. Catastrophizing is listen, it is worrying about things that haven't even happened yet. Does that speak to anybody in this room today? I mean, you hear inklings of something that's going on, and you've already invented a million bad ways this is going to turn out even before it happens. Now, if that's you, man, this is a great form of negativity. Some of you know, I've shared with, there's been some stuff going on, some family junk that's been going on in my family for about a month or so. And it's just dealing with my father getting older and having to kind of release some things and just dealing with life and all of its messiness. And so we've been working on this for about a month or so. And I really became convicted about 3 weeks ago or so that I needed to kind of construct a new relationship with my brother and sister. We've had great memories. We had a close family, but most of our memories are in the past. They're not in the present. And I thought, man, God was really convicting me, and we had a kind of a bad moment with some negotiations about what was going to happen with my dad and what was the best for him at his age and so forth, and it really didn't go well. And so I was really convicted. I just needed to build some bridges with my family, and just to be very intentional about that. And so I called my sister up and I said, hey, can I take you out to lunch? Now, my only goal to do that was to build relationship with her and to share life with her. Because I don't normally do that, and because we'd had some junk that had happened recently, in her mind, I was taking her out to, as my father said, take her to the woodshed. I was there to punish her. I was there to criticize her and bring her down for what she said in that former meeting. And this was like a week before it happened, and she couldn't sleep. She was so worried about what was going to happen at our lunch. The whole time I'm at peace, man. I'm sleeping. Everything's great because I know what my motivations for going out with her. And she was so nervous and so apprehensive about what was going to happen. And we sat down and ate, and God had already convicted me before we started, and I said, hey, I just want you to know I'm here just to spend time with you. I just want to encourage you and love on you. I said, I've been convicted about some things for me. I'm not criticizing, for me, and I need to do this with you. And the more we met, the more I could just see these walls just falling down with us. At the end, and we're at Moe's of all places, we're at Moe's in this crowded place, and at the end of this lunch, she's holding my hand and crying and weeping and sharing all these feelings that she has about me that we haven't talked about in years, all because of the kindness of God. But you see, even though I was coming at it from a kind point, man, it was going to be, she was going to have a painful lunch with me. There was no evidence of that. It was all an invention of her head. That's where negativism starts. Now look at Numbers 13, 32 through 33 once again. They brought to the people the bad report of the land, this invented report that they had spied out, saying the land, listen to this, the land through which we have gone out to spy out is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people we saw in it are of great height. And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim, and we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them. Can you feel the drama and the negativity in this story? Let me just break some things down for you. The first report said that there were strongholds and tall warriors in the land. Now the land devours up people like earthquakes. When has there been any evidence of earthquakes? Who's been devoured by the land? That is not even, this is a lot of creativity going on in this passage of Scripture. In their minds, proving their point, catastrophizing, suspicion about what will happen in the future, even if it hasn't happened. Now these tall warriors are huge. It says that they're the Nephilim, the sons of Anak. Now, I know nobody, usually we look at Bible stories like that and we totally pass by that and go, it's probably big people. Okay, I'm going to move on. That's kind of an interesting, a small history point for those who love it. The Nephilim kind of are a part of an urban legend. At this point in the story, they're almost like Bigfoot or the Chupacabra. You guys, it's like this greater than life thing that in the minds of these guys in Numbers 13, it is huge. By the way, I had to explain to my son this week what Chupacabra means. Do you guys know what that means? Who knows what that means? It's a dog. It's kind of a dog kind of thing, right? Okay, the word, if you never know, this is free too. Chupacabra has two words in it. Chupa, which means to suck. It's like when a baby is sucking on a bottle. It's the chupando. It's chupar, and a cabra is what? Is a goat. So it probably originated somewhere where some dogs or wolves, or we're not sure, were attacking some farmer's goats years and years ago in Mexico. We don't know. But after the years, it became this greater than life boogeyman or werewolf out in the woods ready to suck everybody's blood. That's what a chupacabra is. That's kind of what Bigfoot or Sasquatch is, right? Except on the jerky commercials, we don't know where he is or what's going on. Now, it comes out of reality. We first find, if you Google Nephilim, you're going to find, you can spend hours reading about this race or this group of people. And it starts from Genesis chapter 6. I won't go into the entire history, but this is right before God announces He's going to flood the earth. And one of the reasons He's doing this is because He sees a people so bad and so horrible that He thinks, man, I just need to wipe this thing out and start all over again. And it says that the Nephilim, there are several speculations about who these guys were. Some think that they were angels that spied out human women and laid with them and had a super race of people. Others believe these were fallen angels. These were demons that did this. Others think that they were just really big people. The truth of the matter is we don't know. And if you saw, I don't know if anybody you saw the Noah movie about 5 years ago with Russell Crowe. If anybody saw that movie, there were these big like rock guys in it that looked like the thing from the Fantastic Four. There were these really big guys. Those were the Nephilim, supposedly. Completely anti-biblical, that image and everything. But that's in their minds, that's what was going on. Okay? What I truly believe, what was great about the Nephilim was not just their height, but it was just their level of evil. This isn't about necessarily a group or a race of people that are enhanced or superhuman, but their enhancement was just how bad that they were. And we also know that they were wiped out by the flood. So the question becomes, how did they wind up in Numbers chapter 13 after the flood? That's the question, right? How did these rock people, get there? What in the world is going on here? When we fast forward to Numbers 13, Here's where 10 of the spies report their encounter with the great Nephilim. And I believe that the negative catastrophizing of the spies caused them to invent an encounter with an ancient race of giant warriors that didn't even exist. They're making stuff up. Did they do a DNA test to figure out who they were? Did they do a 23andMe to figure out, oh, those are the Nephilim? Did they sit down and interview them and talk to them and figure out who they were? Do you see how this is invented? And I'm not saying the Bible is inaccurate. The Bible is explaining how the people of Israel and these spies saw what was going on in their present day. The Bible is not a lie. It is what these guys are inventing in their heads, and the Bible is reporting on that. Okay? Can you see the negativity of these spies and how it's created this devouring defeat of a God-given opportunity to possess the land? What suspicions and stories have you invented about others out of your own negativity? Not only that, but they say that they're like grasshoppers, that they feel like grasshoppers in their sight, and it also says that they're thinking that we're like grasshoppers. How do they know that? Now they can, not only are there supernatural rock people roaming the earth, not only that, but they can read minds. Because they're reading the minds of these guys saying, hey, we are like grasshoppers in their sight. How in the world could they even know that? Right? This is an invention based on their negativity and what they want to do in the situation. We are more negative than we think.